So I do want to talk about the good news of Jesus Christ today, but I'm going to do it a little differently than I normally do, because the two congregations that I serve are gathering with 5 other congregations from the area in the park tomorrow, and a colleague of mine will be delivering the message, but I do want to share at least a random collection of thoughts on the readings that will be used by the lectionary when we gather. And so let's begin with the 10th chapter of Luke's telling of the story of Jesus. Now, as Jesus and his disciples went on their way, he entered a certain village, where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me." But the Lord answered her, "Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her." So, when we talk about this story, there's a place that clergy minds tend to go. I was intrigued, by the way, in Bible study with members of the congregation this week. I asked them what was the first thing that came to their mind, and I should have known it was coming, but there was nothing allegorical about it. Right away, it became the question about whether I am a Mary or am I a Martha? Am I the type of person who likes to prepare everything, or am I the type of person who sits in the moment? And now, maybe through the decades, centuries, generations of preaching, pastors have seen the worry to those who have dedicated themselves to preparing a welcome for others. And we've kind of walked this back a little bit. And for us, it is often delivered in a very allegorical sense. This isn't really about being the prepared person or being the more spontaneous person. This is about choosing to sit with the Lord in the holy moments. But I want to walk it back to the way that the people in Bible study initially saw it. Let's look at this as a literal story of Jesus arriving to those who have welcomed him to their house. Martha has done the part of bringing him in, and Mary has sat with him. And he tells Martha that Mary has done the better part, not all of it, but the better part. There is need of only one thing. If we look at it literally, what is the one thing? Honest, true welcome is what is needed when a guest arrives. Honest, true welcome. I'll get back to Jesus telling Martha that Mary has done the better part. But first, let's be aware that question, am I a Mary, am I a Martha, especially if we're going to look at this literally, it's not a question we can answer. Every one of us is at times a Mary, at times a Martha. Every one of us at times is caught up in the work that must be done, distracted from why we're doing the work, which is what I think is happening with Martha. And every one of us at times has been so enraptured in what is happening before us that we have left our neighbors to sweep up the garbage and put it in the trash can. But this is an important idea. How do we welcome truly someone who comes in? It was pointed out rather quickly in Bible study that hospitality was a central idea for the people in the region and in the time that our Bible stories were written. See, marching this back from an allegory about sitting in the holy moments with Jesus to a recommendation on how to provide true hospitality isn't making this any less important, any less sacred, any less of an obligation to the people who would have heard it. Let's read a little bit from our first reading in the lectionary for Genesis. See, the Lord appeared to Abraham by the oaks of Mamre, and he sat at the entrance of his tent in the heat of the day. He looked up, saw 3 men standing near him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent entrance to meet them and bowed down to the ground. He said, "My Lord, if I find favor with you, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. Let me bring a little bread that you may refresh yourselves, and after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant." So they said, "Do as you have said." And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, "Make ready quickly 3 measures of choice flour, knead it, make cakes." Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and he gave it to the servant who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk and the calf that he had prepared and set it before them. And he stood by them under the tree while they ate. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" And he said, "There in the tent." Then one said, "I will surely return to you in due season, and your wife Sarah shall have a son." Now, if you know the story of Abraham and Sarah, you know that this son that Sarah will have is the blessing upon blessings they have been waiting for. It is the good news brought to them. I will return, and Sarah will have a son. And, well, if you know the story, she is so overwhelmed she doesn't really believe them, laughs at it. But where does this blessing come from? It comes strangers. Now, we can recognize that 3 strange men appearing out of nowhere like this, there's a bit of an angelic messenger vibe to that. But the original audience, the original hearers of this story, immediately found nothing strange about Abraham rushing to take care of these strangers passing through, because hospitality was such a crucial thing to a desert people. I mean, it was the honor you had. It was how you showed that you were a decent person, and it's also done with the full expectation that this culture would do the same if you were walking by. Hospitality was the center of what it meant to be a decent member of society. Would you provide well for your guest? And then Jesus, well, he makes some shifts as he sits down with Mary and Martha. First, he allows Mary to sit at his feet, a woman. Sarah, well, she stayed back, doing as she was asked to do, not brought out. There was a change there. But then Jesus looks to Martha, who is doing all the work, all the things that are expected of you to prove you're a decent person. We have welcomed you. We've shown you this hospitality, what we are obligated to do. And he says, this other woman has actually welcomed me also. I don't want to make it be an either or. She has sat with me. Do you remember why you were asked to welcome the stranger? So that they wouldn't be strangers anymore. Maybe Maybe this isn't so much about sitting in our churchy situations and in holy moments in prayer with Jesus. Maybe this is about connecting with people. I mean, just let me ask you, which party do you really feel more at home at? One that has the cloth set out perfectly, your seat named, you sit down and a plate comes down next to you and your silverware and fork, or the one where you stand around the kitchen? Half of you sitting on top of the counter, you know full well you're welcome to get into the fridge and grab anything you want. See, maybe the story we're told about Jesus is telling us that the better part is actually welcoming people. You got to feed one another. It's still wrong to let our neighbors do all the work for us. Let's not lose track of why we welcome one another, why we gather together, what benefit we have, what holiness there is in just being in community together. Maybe this is just a real literal object lesson on what the better part of welcome is. Maybe. And maybe tomorrow, out by the park with a potluck dinner. We won't, in our efforts around this region, in our efforts to make it a nice afternoon, we won't lose the better part of really connecting with one another. That'd be nice. And I'm sure my colleague will deliver an excellent message as well. God's peace to you.